thinking about the doing business with government open enrollment program after listening to some of our PGP students here, which are the MBA students in our long duration programs. And many of them said, well, we typically we end up in consulting companies, and a lot of the work that we get in terms of the projects tend to be government projects. But there isn't any kind of an orientation that is provided to us to understand, okay, how exactly do we interact with the government when we are trying to get business from the government. So any kind of contracts, partnerships that organizations, in particular private sector organizations, might be wanting to get into with the government. But there is very little orientation provided to the students during the coursework, and that's how the idea for this program came about. Because what we thought is that there must be several working professionals out there in the private sector firms and across a range of private sector firms. So we're talking about the bigger, more established firms. We're also talking about smaller scale firms. And we're also talking about the newer, more startup kind of firms. So all of them, in one way or another, are wanting to do business with the government, and for obvious reasons, because it is indeed the biggest client in terms of the monetary value of the business that is offered by, and we are talking about here in particular the Indian government, and even the course, we are talking in the context of the Indian government and the functionings of certain things within the framework of the Indian government. So just wanted to clarify that. So we are looking at people potentially working across different kinds of private sector firms. And the focus that we, after a lot of conversations that we decided on are that first and foremost, I think whenever any company, any private sector company wants to gain government business, they have to understand the procurement process. So we are going to be spending, in fact, the first full day almost, or most, the majority of the sessions are going to be only on understanding the procurement process. And then for that, we have someone coming in from the government itself, taking the participants through the entire what exactly is procurement and how exactly do you work around the platform, which is called GEM, and also how to put together a bid document. If you wanted to bid for any of the government projects, how exactly do you bid for those projects? Over about 3 sessions plus one guest session, and we are hoping that in fact the person within the government who's in charge of the GEM platform would be willing to come and talk to the participants. So you will get a very good sense of the procurement process and how to actually put it into practice. So also to put together a bid document. So that is going to be the sort of the beginning of the course. And then we will move on to other aspects of doing business with government, which is to enter into public-private partnerships, which is also to understand government as a seller. The government is also a seller in the sense that it has to offer certain kinds of services. So if you're, say, within the telecom sector, you might be aware that you have to buy the bandwidth from the government. So there are auctions, there are licenses that companies may need to get from the government. So the government is also a seller in many ways. So to understand both public-private partnerships and also understand some specific aspects of government as a seller. And then there will be some focus on some of the softer skills of dealing with the government. So how do you design a strategy as a company? How do you design a strategy such that you're able to win the business with governments? What are the ethical boundaries of doing business with governments? Because once you are within functioning within the government framework, you have to be very careful about the fact that a lot of the information is going to be open to right to information. It is going to be open to public scrutiny. So how to make sure that you're walking within those ethical boundaries, how to negotiate. And for all of this, we will be having people within the institute who are experts on these aspects, and as well as guest sessions, including guest sessions by people from top level CEOs from private sector firms, including the former Comptroller and Auditor General of India. And of course, we have Professor of Practice, Professor Parmeswaran Iyer, who is a colleague here at the JSW School of Public Policy. And he will be, he has been what he calls himself an insider and outsider. So he was within the government, now works with the World Bank. So he brings in very interesting perspectives on how to function within the ethical boundaries, how to negotiate with the government. So there is going to be a focus on, or rather a balance between the harder skills such as procurement, understanding different kinds of contracts under PPPs, understanding how to secure licenses, how to work around government options, as well as the softer skills of developing strategies, developing negotiation and communication strategies, and understanding the ethics of doing business with government. And we will be having guest sessions, as I mentioned. In addition to that, we are also planning a field visit for the participants to the Gift City, which is in Gandhinagar. And there we would have the current head of the IFSCA who will make time to speak to the participants and tell them about what it means also to do business with the government, because in the end the government is trying to attract a lot of firms to come and start doing business from Gift City. So he has his own take on how to negotiate and how to do business with the government. So we have an exciting lineup of sessions, of guest speakers, of field visits, and a lot of practice oriented and skills oriented sessions. So that is about the overview about the course.